it seems like more and more people today are just like, what are we doing here? Okay, and like, why am I so unfulfilled with the work that I'm doing? I've had at least 4, maybe 5 conversations with friends and colleagues who I thought had their shit together come to me for advice on this exact same topic, and it's made me realize, like, wow, a lot of people are struggling with this topic, which is partly why I wanted to make this video, but also because I just, have recently discovered an interest in anthropology, and I want to really approach this problem away from an individual standpoint and zoom out and really analyze it from a societal perspective of what's really going on here. And the first thing I noticed that you're going to want to understand is that as a society, you are a function of a much larger system. And the way a system functions is that it inherently has a goal at its center, in which it guides all behavior of all the elements within that system. So the structure of a system, including its rules, its norms, its relationship, all of it, it's all organized around that central goal. So whether you're an amoeba in a system or a person living in Western society, the goal of that system greatly affects your individual experience. Okay, that's very important to understand. So as an example, high schools and colleges, okay, that's a system that functions at a very large scale. And if you look at any kind of standard college class, the majority of the students in that class are not there out of vested interest. Some of them might be just there to move up in that class to go on to another class in their curriculum. Why is this, you might ask? Well, it's because at the center of that school's system is their goal, which is high standardized testing. Now this isn't actually stated anywhere, but if you just look at any kind of behavior that is produced from a system, you can trace back what its objective really is. The behaviors it creates in students is rote memorization and surface level learning, cheating to obtain a high test score, even if that means sacrificing the information. You don't actually learn anything, you just want to get the grade, which a lot of people do. And then what I mentioned earlier, strategic enrollment in courses. That's just a little side tangent for anyone in school. Maybe that gives you a better understanding of why you're unfulfilled in school. But so that's how systems work in an example with the school system. Let's look at our social system. Now, what is at the center? So now, what is the central goal of our social system? What kind of society do we actually have? Well, we don't have a socialist society, we don't have a communist society, but we have a capitalist society. And there's this maxim that goes, capitalism is the worst economic system, except for all the other ones, okay? So it's definitely the best that we've got right now, but I want to point out some of the behaviors that it creates as a result of this system's goal, and show how these behaviors might actually be the reason you're unfulfilled with your work. So to answer my question, what is the goal of our system? So the capitalist system optimizes for production, and that production goal is profit. So notice our system's inherent goal is not the fulfillment of its people. Wouldn't that be nice? It's not that. As a capitalist society, we want to be able to produce and sell things at scale, not only to our country, but we want to be able to produce enough stuff to export to other countries as well. So that's like, cool. I like stuff. You probably like stuff. I want access to whatever stuff I may need in case of an emergency or just to create a prosperous life. Like, that's great. I'm in favor of free trade and putting less regulation on competition. So anyone should be able to start a business and provide value in that market without much regulation. That's cool. And without this system in place, you could argue that we'd have pretty terrible lives. I mean, for the majority of human civilization, people lived horribly. If you just consider income, life expectancy, and child mortality. And it wasn't really until the Industrial Revolution that humans just saw this major spike in human prosperity. And right around that time, there was this really cool dude named Adam Smith. And he's basically the granddaddy of microeconomics. And he pinpointed that the prosperity of a nation was the result of something called specialization. Now, specialization allows a country to be hyper efficient in its export of goods, which again is at the center of our system. It's our goal, so that's great. Think of a factory line of people making clocks. Specialization requires each person do have a very specific role in that clock making process, from being the person making the clock hands, to putting together the clock face, to assembling the gears and the springs inside that clock. Each person has a very specific role. Now, from an economic perspective, this is great. This is highly efficient, and we can produce thousands, hundreds of thousands of clocks this way. From an individual perspective, it's very unlikely that you'll go into a restaurant after work with your friends, notice a few clocks on the wall, and look at the hands and just be like, yep, like I did that. That was me. Bless. Like, very unlikely, right? So specialization often leaves a great deal of disconnection and unfulfillment from the work that you do. Robert Heinlein was famously quoted for saying specialization is for insects, not for humans. In order to feel fulfilled by your work, consider a theory that was posed by Karl Marx. And he said, a worker must see themselves in the objects in which they are created. Okay? So back to the clock example, if you go back like 500 years, you had clockmakers who were absolute craftsmen, who took great pride in their creation. So each clock was part of their personality, because they personally molded the entire thing to their exact specifications. Whereas specialization turns a clock maker into an efficient spring maker, which is kind of demoralizing. So maybe, just maybe, you are a spring maker right now that really needs to be a clock maker. If I pull an example from my own life, I'm 24 now, and when I was 13 to 18, I created a lot of short YouTube skits in my free time. And I like to think of those as craftsmanship work, because I was very involved from beginning to end in the production and this very creative process. And at the end of the day, I could neatly put one of those videos on a shelf, look back on it even today and be like, like I'm proud of that. I did that. Yep, that was great. Like I've got these very positive emotions associated with it. But contrast that with when I opened a video business at 20 years old, my productions shifted to specialization, to where we would only make one type of video for one type of client. It was very lucrative, it was very effective for getting sales in that market, but when I actually went to film these videos, I was like, oh my god, what am I doing with my life? Please don't make me do this again. So that's specialization in a nutshell. That's how it demoralizes your life and contributes to a society of unfulfilled workers, but also how at the center of this system is a goal that doesn't look out for your individual best interests. Now, that's section one. Very important to understand about capitalism, specialization. The second behavior it creates is ways of thinking about life that are not conducive to a very happy life. So a problem with capitalism that I would actually posit that is the worst function of capitalism is the ideologies that are spread as a result. I'm talking about ideologies like unemployment is bad and work is your moral duty, which if you're not working creates the sense of shame. Or that I need to buy things and having things makes me valuable, which promotes this materialism sort of mindset. Or that leisure beyond a few weeks a year is lazy, which many of you might not even consider. You know, leisure is not a bad thing, and it leads to a very balanced lifestyle. Or number 4, worthwhile endeavors are only things that are profitable. Or 5, like competition over community. Success in capitalism is primarily measured by one's ability to outperform others. So you kind of develop this mindset, this ideology of like, I need to elbow and step over my competition to win. And you start to look at everyone as competition. So these are all things that we've grown up with our entire lives. So yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. And we can look outward to countries like Bhutan, who have gross national happiness as a measure of its development rather than gross national product, like in Western society. So at the heart of their system, they balance between materialism and production with spiritual, emotional, and cultural needs, which I think is awesome. You know, for an entire country to adopt that rather than just like a small homestead community of like 2,000 people is beautiful. So you watching this video right now, you're like, okay, what can I actually do about this? Well, the most obvious answer, guys, is just move to Bhutan. No, I'm kidding. No, there's actually a lot that you do have control over here. And maybe I'll make future videos on this if this video gains interest. But I just want to share one thing that you can start doing today, okay? But before I share that, I honestly think just being aware is probably the most important thing, okay? People who say ignorance is bliss is not something that I agree with. You can be very intelligent and know what is going on around you while still being calm, happy, and relaxed. With that being said, you're not fulfilled in your work. Okay, what do you do about it? Well, number one is identify, are you doing spring maker work or are you doing clockmaker work? Okay? Do you think you'd enjoy the clockmaker work? If yes, then go build clocks in your free time. If no, find somewhere else to work, to try other things. Basically, prioritize work projects to do in your free time that you think would be fulfilling. And try taking small steps to involve that more and more into your everyday life, okay? There is so much more to say about doing work that is authentic to you and how that can create an entire career for you. And that could fill an entire video. That could be hours of content. But for now, if you just take the time for things in your life that you can enjoy, that'll help a bit. So, guys, just by knowing the inherent goal of the system that you are playing in will give you a sense of understanding on why things are the way that they are, why things are happening, why people are behaving the way that they are, why there are certain rules, why certain things are normalized and others are not. So, yeah. So I'd like to hear stories of how you have sought fulfillment in your work in the comments below. And if you've used any strategies that you've found helpful in seeking fulfillment in your work, that I am looking to learn. So please share them with me, start a conversation, and thanks for watching the video. I'll catch you guys later.